Hello everyone, Professor Krizlik here. So I wanted to make a video talking about a class I'll be teaching in fall of 2026. So the course is PSCI 425, Senior Seminar in International Relations. So that is what the course catalog calls it. As you know, if you're taking a senior seminar, there's a lot of flexibility in what that class is. So I just wanted to walk through the syllabus real quick. So if you're taking my course in the fall, it's going to be U.S. national security policy in world politics, strategy, power, and global threats. So a working title, so it might change a bit by the time fall comes around. But this is really going to be a course about U.S. national security policy and America's role in world politics. So our class will examine how the United States identifies global threats, debates strategic priorities in the world today, and how the U.S. chooses among different tools of power. So we know this includes military force, diplomacy, alliances, deterrence, economic sanctions, intelligence, and emerging technologies. All things that we hear about in the news, we learn about in 1, 2, 300 level international relations course. This course is going to put it all together and allow us to think of U.S. national security and the U.S.'s role in the world. And we know it's an evolving world. We know that there are some big changes occurring in the world. So at the center of the course will at the center of the course, it's based around a broad but practical question. How should the United States protect its security in a world that is increasingly being shaped by great power competition, regional conflict, rapid technological change, and, as we're seeing, global instability? So rather than treating national security as only a military issue, this course will look at national security through that much broader political and economic, and we'll look again at technological challenges. So not just from a military aspect, but instead from these competing and these competing perspectives. So looking at the syllabus, early on in the semester, we will talk about what national security actually means, what this topic actually is. I know here at UNC we don't teach a standalone course on national security, even though many of the things we will talk about and learn about and read about have been touched on and introduced in earlier classes, but here we get to dig deeper into it. However, it's still important early on in the semester to lay out what is national security. We will think about whether security should be defined narrowly in terms of military defense, maybe just territorial protection, or more broadly to include maybe it's the U.S.'s national security role to promote economic stability around the world. We'll touch on issues like cyber vulnerability, energy access, climate risks, supply chain disruptions, democratic values, and of course, global order. We will use major international relations perspectives that you absolutely learned in Introduction to International Relations. Competing ideas like realism, liberal internationalism, constructivism. These will all help us understand how different scholars and different policymakers interpret America's role in the world. So instead of just focusing on one school of thought, we will bring these competing schools of thought in to try to make sense of the U.S.'s role in the world. So after laying that initial groundwork, the course moves into debates over U.S. grand strategy. So we will examine whether the United States should continue to play a large global role, whether it should adopt a more restraint foreign policy, or whether it needs a more selective strategy that distinguishes between vital interests and less central commitments. Really, debate that we're all living through right now. We're living through during election time. We've lived through with the election of Donald Trump, his argument of what U.S. foreign policy should be. So, as we're digging into the scholarship, we're digging into policymakers and academics and scholars, it will help us make sense of the debates that we're hearing in the world around us. And it'll help us make sense of the world around us, which I think is a big part of political science. We're learning about theories and we're learning about how the world works through empirical research to help us make sense of the world that we live in. So a major part of PSCI 425 focuses on the tools of national security policy. We will study military power, coercion, deterrence, and of course nuclear strategy. This will all include questions about escalation risk and the continued role of nuclear weapons in U.S. national security and global security. We will discuss alliances and NATO, asking whether alliances strengthen American security or create problems of burden sharing and entanglement. Again, debates that if you open the New York Times, you open the Washington Post, we're seeing these debates over nuclear weapons, of the U.S.'s role in NATO, and is the U.S. pulling back from NATO. Again, we can open any newspaper and see these debates. So in our national security class, we're going to dig deeper so we understand these debates better than just what we see in the newspaper. Okay, we'll examine economic statecraft, including sanctions, something that I like to work on, export controls, and the idea of global economic networks, how they can be used as instruments of coercion. Okay, again, something else. We turn on the news and we hear about Iran using the Straits of Hormuz as an economic tool of war. So we'll dig deeper into these issues to have a better understanding of how sanctions are used, how sanctions can be successful and when they're not. So our course will apply these ideas to pretty major security challenges, including some that are contemporary. We will examine China and the Indo-Pacific, including competition over regional order and the risks surrounding Taiwan. We will study Russia, Ukraine, European security, including how the war in Ukraine has reshaped debates over NATO, deterrence, escalation, and U.S. commitments to Europe. Again, front page of the New York Times this week about the Trump administration wanting to pull troops out of Germany. We'll dig deeper into our understanding of, okay, why are there troops in Germany still? Why are there 30,000 troops in Germany? So our U.S. national security course, although some of these things are covered in other courses, again, not in the same way and not in the same depth as they will be in our course. So we will also consider terrorism, although as you saw from my video with Dr. Detsy, terrorism's not in the news as much as it was a decade or two ago, but it's still a major global phenomenon. So we will look at terrorism after the war on terror, of course, cyber conflict, like I said at the outset, artificial intelligence, emerging technologies, and the ways these issues complicate older assumptions about war and peace. So later on in the semester, we will turn to questions about democracy, human rights, and the expanding security agenda. Students will be exposed to and will think about when moral concerns do or should shape U.S. interests and how policymakers should weigh humanitarian concerns against strategic risks. We will also examine newer security issues, including climate change, resource competition, and, of course, supply chain vulnerabilities. So, because this is a senior seminar, the course will be built around discussion, around careful reading for that discussion, and of course, analytical writing as students are taking this course as they are preparing to enter the workforce. So, all my classes tried to be discussion based, but this class will absolutely be discussion based. I'll still make videos on throughout the week to upload on Friday that lay out the main issues of the reading, that 30,000 foot understanding of the reading, but it'll allow for a lot of in-class discussion and in-class debate because, again, we're going to be reading theory that sometimes is contradictory to each other. Liberalism and realism will look at many of these debates differently. When we look at applied U.S. national security policy, these perspectives are very different. Students will have different perspectives of what the U.S.'s role in the world should be. Should it be more assertive, or should it be more take care of home issues first? These same debates that are going on in the society around us we'll see in the readings, so it's important that we do the readings before class so we come prepared to discuss. And then I'll still make my videos that just give an overview of the reading. So I hope to see many of you in PSCI 425 Senior Seminar, International Relations, where it'll be U.S. national security policy and world politics, strategy, power, and global threats. Thank you.